Welcome back, everybody, to Badger Pack Sports. Going to be going over the recap of the NFL Combine. We talked to you before it, went over some guys we were excited for. How did they perform? Did they do better? Did they do worse than we were expecting? What does this mean for the Packers? As always, joined by my co-host Justin Legal. So excited for him to be here. Justin, how's it going?
Good, man. We're at episode 6 already. How fast? Blink of an eye, we're dropping our 6th episode. I want to say a huge shout out to the faithful listeners that have reached out to Robbie and I in engaging with our content. So we're excited to talk about episode 1 stuff that we
Yep.
covered here in episode 6. And yeah, the combine was a lot of my guys didn't test, which is always fun to break down. But hey, we're gonna roll our sleeves up and we're gonna discuss it.
Oh yeah, and I mean a lot of the guys that we talked about, it's like, we're only going to have so many chances at everyone, so it's like it's just kind of reviewing what we all had going on. But yeah, no, so I think the first thing we should go get into here is just the wide receivers. I had my two guys, Trey Harris and Matthew Golden. I think the first guy I'll bring up is Trey Harris. And I thought he was going to run a little bit faster. He ended up only running a 4.54, but kind of looking around, it's like I think that was always the biggest question. What's his long speed like? So it looks like he's not going to be the fastest guy, but his 10-yard split was actually still pretty decent. He had a good vertical and good broad, so that just kind of shows some like explosiveness. And so I think that will help. I think he's still going to be able to have a quick first step to be able to get open. And he's a physical receiver, so he doesn't need to be the fastest either. So I'd say he's slightly down from where I had him going into the combine, but I wouldn't say it's a huge fall for me.
Yeah, a lot of Trey Harris love from you and a lot of other Packer fans, and the guy I loved, and I think the combine has maybe opened your eyes to his ceiling a little bit or capabilities is Alec Iomanner from Stanford. He did pull off that 4.40. Say that 10 times fast. Um, 38.5-inch vertical jump, 10'7" broad jump. Smooth route runner, great agility. A guy that he's creeping up boards a little bit. I'm seeing him early second round. He's still a guy that I think he's not a household name, but he's a guy that was super solid at Stanford, tested very well at the combine. I think his stock's pretty stable. I don't think he shot up, and he definitely did not fall.
Yeah, I think he might be. It's him and Trey Harris might have been similar, kind of that second to third round, and I think maybe Isle Manor gets bumped up to like the second round or like early third or late second, and I think Trey Harris is kind of like mid third now, maybe. So I think it's like I definitely think he helped with that. Like I said, I was kind of wondering if he was going to be a 4 or 5 guy, so it was good to see him run that time.
Yeah, my other guy that I highlighted was Jaden Higgins, and I know you and I are both in love with this guy.
Yep.
Tested super well, ran a 4.47 40, so even faster than Trey Harris with much
Yep.
larger size. 39-inch vertical, so he has definitely has some height. And we talked about in the first episode, a guy that I think Love can leverage in the red zone for 50-50 balls, a guy that can sit in zone coverage, find the open holes, and allow Love to get a high percentage completion, but also yards after catch ability is there too. I could see NFL teams just loving him just because of his size, and I could see him going late first, early second. Depends on the boards, how he falls, but he's a guy I think his stock increased in the combine. I'm not sure what you think, Robbie.
Yeah, no, I definitely think as far as Higgins goes, it increased for me. I liked Higgins. I thought I kind of liked Trey Harris better in ways. I think he might be Trey Harris might be the true better like X receiver on the boundary, but I think that Jaden Higgins is going to be able to do more as far as like you said, play well in zone. And with how the NFL is going to more of a zone heavy scheme, I think Jaden Higgins' value is a lot higher there. And he just seems to be a good safety blanket. It's like I know you like Alec Manor, but it's like I think I still might like Jaden Higgins over Manor though.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I like Manor because I think he's got sneaky value. I think Higgins should be above him, But I know we know this with Goody, we know this with the Packers. They love to find those value guys in the second and third round. And I think Io Manor, if he's sitting there, late second, early third, I would be ecstatic if we can make a move on the board and go grab him because I think he's got um, high potential. I know the first episode I kind of compared him to Jordy Nelson, and I'm sure that there's people are probably laughing. What I want to say is he has the profile of Nelson, but the guy I was thinking about, he kind of reminds me of is James Jones with the fact of, not a guy that's going to be, blowing your socks off, but a guy that was just a dependable target on third downs and when big plays, when Rodgers needed to find somebody, James Jones was there. And I can see Manor kind of having that type of role with a Jordy Nelson kind of athleticism, let's say.
Okay, okay, I can get on board with that one. Okay, the Jordy Nelson one, that one is hard for me, but I can get on board with that. But no, I definitely like Jaden Higgins. But I mean, it's like I gotta save room though for my top guy, and that's Matthew Golden. I mean, just showing out that there were people who were thinking he was gonna run in the 4.5s. Boy, did he prove them wrong,
Mm.
running an official 4.29. I was watching the NFL Stock Exchange, which they did a 2 round mock draft today, and they were saying that, his 4.29 speed does not show up on tape. I reviewed it. It just seemed like when he caught the ball, there was always people around him. There were a lot of short throws from the Texas quarterbacks, which is surprising with Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers there. But it's like he was either getting a crossing one where he had people in front of him, where so he was going more sideways, and you could tell he was focusing on holding on to the ball, not losing that. So ball security, I'm happy to see him doing that and not losing the ball. But it's like, and he might not show the speed, but the defensive backs could tell that he had speed because he gets a lot of routes where he snaps off and goes and does an out route, and he creates a lot of separation there because the DBs are afraid of his speed. And I think that's telling of how much the defender respects the receiver. So I think Matthew Golden, he's got strong hands. I was excited about him before the combine. I'm even more excited. I would even look to trade up to 19 if he's still available there because I think there's wide receiver hungry teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers in front of us that might take him. So that's how strongly I feel about Matthew Golden this year.
Yeah, and I'll say like teams like Texas, and this isn't just this does not just apply to Matthew Golden. I think it applies to a lot of skill guys. Teams like Texas, Bama, Georgia, Ohio State. It's easy to get kind of overlooked because you're in a crowded room with talent. Texas, Isaiah Bond is a guy that's I don't he didn't test as great at the combine, but a guy that still has high pedigree that drew a lot of attention from defenses. So when you're in a crowded room, especially in college, a lot of egos, a lot of young kids, a lot of mouths to feed. So it's hard to maybe for guys to say, oh, with Golden's film at Texas, he didn't show his 4.29 speed. It's like it's all dependent on the scheme too, right? So I 19 would be interesting. Definitely against every instinct as us as Packer fans have to see Goody do a move like that, but it would be a breath of fresh air and it'd be something that I think would be pretty celebrated in the fan base.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of recency bias for me too. I really liked Brian Thomas Jr. last year coming out of LSU, watching him go against the Badgers in that bowl game, and it's like you could tell it's like he was opposite Malik Neighbors, but dude led the SEC in touchdowns. I mean, you could tell he was talented, and he showed what he could do this year. It's like he was one of the top receivers in the league. And I couldn't imagine if we would have given Jordan Love a weapon like that instead of giving him Jordan Morgan, who ended up being hurt and not actually helping him. Obviously, injuries plays a factor, but it's like if we had Brian Thomas, we would be ecstatic right now. And I don't want to waste us getting a top talent and being like, oh, we can find a receiver in the third or fourth round that's undervalued. But it's like he just doesn't have that top end potential. And it's like I've been hearing it for years. It's like we did it with Favre, we did it with Rodgers. Let's finally get our quarterback some talent.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think last year, if you kind of take a trip back in memory lane, that's where that divisional run maybe hurt us a little bit because Love looked so great with the young talent. If you look at it, like Goody's probably looking like, man, we got guys like Watson, Dobbs, Reed, Kraft, Musgrave at the time had a really good season. young guys, like I don't need to invest first round capital. Um, so I could see why last year, a guy like Brian Thomas, obviously looking at it now in hindsight, would have been amazing. But I think last year we were looking at guys like Cooper DeJean in the secondary, guys like
Yep.
some pass rush guys. We ended up getting a tackle, which I think he's going to be a guard, Jordan Morgan. But
Yep.
maybe that's a bit of an explanation to you, Robbie, as to why Goody didn't feel obligated to pull the trigger. But I think this year with guys like Josh Jacobs going out in public saying we need a number one guy, we need some more talent in the room. Hopefully that the message is clear, to the staff that maybe we make a bold move, like you said, going up to 19 to get a guy like Golden.
Yeah. Well, he still didn't listen to me last year. I wanted Nate Wiggins, who did okay for Baltimore. So, but we'll move past that. Me
We'll have plenty
being
of
a trap.
draft gripes.
Yeah.
We'll probably have a whole episode, post April, uh, to talk about guys that we should have drafted and we didn't.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say, while we move on, then we'll go to the edge rushers and defensive line. Who you got starting out there?
yeah, defensive line. We talked about Walter Nolan. He did not do any physical testing. And I want to spend a couple minutes here because I think it's overlooked in the combine. We were quick to jump on 40 times and shuttle runs and verticals. I think one thing that's important too that gets overlooked is understanding what these kids are made out of. And I know you hear these crazy stories from players when they say all these NFL teams met with me and they asked me some of the craziest questions. I think that stuff's important to understand because we know all these guys are world class athletes, or else they wouldn't be invited, right? Sure, we're comparing them about tenths of a second away on a 4 yard dash if it's amazing or okay, but I think understand from a a non athleticism point of view, what's like how are they wired? What drives them? I think that's important, and maybe it's a little rant of mine of that it frustrates me with the Packers specifically that Goody does not have LaFleur come to the combine. I think
Yeah.
that is for guys like Walter Nolan that don't run. LaFleur should meet with these kids and get to know them because it's great that Goody knows them in the scouting department, but LaFleur is the one that's essentially the cook in the kitchen, right? He's taking all these recipes that Goody and the recruiting staff or scouting staff put together, and LaFleur's should have a say at least to know who these kids are and kind of have like, hey, Goody, I don't know about this kid. It seems like he's a little full of himself, or it seems like he's not as mentally sharp as we need him to be. Those type of things that you can't measure on the field. I mean, I don't know what you think of that. I know we talked about Walter Nolan here. I still think he's a solid
Yeah.
pick. It sounds like he may have some some good interviews, but do you think there's any value to that?
No, I definitely think there'd be value in that. I did think it was weird that LaFleur wasn't there. It's like you would think that he would be wanting to ask questions, but I know they take advantage of like a lot of their other visits, and there's not really that much time. There's like 10, 15 minutes that it's not an actual long process. So maybe it's like Goody, it's that whole if you actually have like an interview for a job, you get pre-screened. And I think that's the biggest thing is maybe Goody's just looking at the pre-screening, and he's been doing it for a while with Ted Thompson too. So in that way, like I do trust Goody in that aspect. It's like, okay, what are we looking for?
Well, and just
But
remember too, for those visits, NFL rules, you can only have 30 guys come and visit.
yep,
And again, could that be enough? Sure, but I think it's kind of like speed dating too, right? When you can go to
yep,
obviously you and I are both married, happily married, but speed dating, like you sit down and go through people, and you can easily tell within the first 2 to 3 minutes, like, okay, for me, not for me. And I
yep,
think that at least can have Goody and Lafleur collaborate a little bit better, so we know we're bringing in guys that fit both the culture of what Goody's looking for, but also what culture Lafleur is looking for in the locker room, because I think that's
yep,
super important. So that's my mini rant. I think Walter Nolan, he's still a guy I'm looking for, and I expect Ole Miss Pro Day we'll be able to see some more. We'll probably talk more about guys like him. Just to get ahead of the horse, like Michael Williams, I also talked about. He also did not perform in the field, so we'll talk more about my two guys there on the pro day. But what about your guys, Robbie?
yeah. So I had Shamar Stewart, and then I had Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant didn't perform, but Shamar Stewart, he showed up and showed out. He ran a 4.59 40, had a 40-inch vertical. That was second out of all the edge rushers there. And then he had a 10-11 broad jump, which, the broad jump, that's just showing the explosiveness. It's like, and I just watched a little bit more on the tape. It's like if you give that guy a clean release, it showed in his 10-yard split. He's explosive. I think that's definitely moving him up. Just kind of looking at some mock drafts today, it's like it's kind of crazy still because now he's going within the top 15, but then some still have him falling into the 20s just because of that lack of production at 1.5 sacks. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, why are you not productive? However, he did lead the team in pressures, so that's going to be a big thing for him there. It's like, can you convert the pressures into production there? But no, it was definitely a good day for Shamar Stewart. Made himself some money there.
Yeah, and I know Shamar Stewart's been tagged as a project guy, which might scare some teams. And right away, our heads go to guys like Van Ness.
Yep.
But Shamar Stewart, when I saw that 40
Yep.
time, my jaw was on the floor. I'm like, this guy has some explosiveness and he has length. And I know we
Yep.
talked about episode 1 of batting balls on the line of scrimmage. I want to see more of that. And I think a guy like Shamar Stewart can
Yep.
bring that.
Showed on his tape, so
Yep.
it's there. But yeah, and then I'd say we move to defensive backs. Who you got defensive back wise?
Same story here. Benjamin Morrison, he had that season ending hip injury,
Yep.
um, didn't participate. It'd be interesting to see, you know, how he goes on the boards. I've seen him anywhere from like the 20s in the round one, slipping all the way down to middle of second.
Yep.
We just dropped an episode on free agency and defensive backs, and I think the top guys in the class this year for the draft all have some injury concern, which is why we spent a lot of time. So please check that episode out, episode 5. We'll talk about defensive backs with free agency. So we'll see. I don't know if he's going to
Yeah, we'll
participate in the
throw a
pro
link
day.
in the description on that one for
Yeah,
show 5 if you want to go and see that.
yeah, absolutely, we will. And I'm not sure. I didn't dig into it if he's going to participate in his pro day. Maybe he does a couple on-field drills or
Yeah,
something. But
might have a private one.
yeah, the jury's still out. I'll have some feedback on him from that. But what about your guy, Robbie?
Yep. So I had two guys. We had Trey Amos. I'd say he performed. I'd say right where he's supposed to, running a 4.43. Did show he didn't run in the 4.5, so I think he shows he's got enough speed to hang with top receivers. Still good size at 6 foot, 6'1" there. So I think he's in a good position there. I'd say he's probably still around a second round guy, maybe early second to late second. And then the other guy that I brought up, and I didn't know he was actually going to perform this well, and that's Maxwell Hairston running a 4.28 on the fastest 40s at the fastest 40 at the combine there. Then he also had a 39.5-inch vert. That was second for DBs. And then a 10.9 broad jump for third. So, I mean, this guy is an explosive athlete. He's going to be able to show the ability to break on the ball. When we talked about in the first episode is what kind of a defense is Halfley going to run? And I mean, this guy just shows that he's got an ability to be explosive. So if they want to use him in zone, but he's willing in man. I mean, he's got an alpha mentality, and I think that's something that Halfley's definitely going to look at, and something that we thought a mentality that Halfley was going to bring to this defense, and I think he did last year. I think so. Maxwell Hairston moved up. He was later. He was like a third round guy, third round, fourth round guy in some places, but it's like I think he solidified himself into the second round. So I would say both guys that I picked did pretty good. Pretty happy with the guys that I watched tape on and had some good things to thought they might do okay.
Yeah, and I want to segue to this, and I'm going to give you the mic here. You talked about a guy at the end of episode 1 that you would
Ooh,
love to see paired with, and I can tell by your excitement you want to talk about this guy. How did your man Jihad Campbell test?
Ooh, Jihad Campbell. Okay, first we'll start out with the 40, 4.53. Okay, I mean that is a good time for an inside outside linebacker. It's like, but then watching the drills, I mean, anytime there were bags or they were holding up the bags, and it's like you heard him. It's like he never looked like he was trying extra hard to hit the bags, but you heard it, and it was effortless. And it's like I just loved watching him come around the corners, and you can just hear the physicality. in every time he hit those things, and still explosive, good change of direction. I mean, like, and it's funny because I've talked him up, and then Pro Football Focus actually like moved him up into like the top 10 or at least the top 15. So it's like
They may be a
clearly
viewer
they're
of the
seeing what
show,
I'm seeing.
and they
Yeah,
may be a
well,
viewer of the show. So, hey, Pro Football Focus, thank you for tuning
yeah,
in.
I was gonna say, like I said, I watched the NFL Stock Exchange with the guy who runs that board, and so you know he's got some interesting takes. I don't know if I like Jade Barron as much as him because he's got Jade Barron at like 7, so I think that's a little crazy. But it's like Jade Barron did do a good job. He ran a solid 40 as well, and just I think did solidify that he's got the speed to be on the outside, but I guess versatility right there. Like he's shown it everywhere. He's got the versatility to play outside, inside. So I think if you're looking at that, his value does go up. So maybe he's right. Maybe I shouldn't throw so much smoke. Okay, but it's like it was definitely good. Another guy that I saw as far as corners do well was Darian Porter. I thought he definitely had a good combine there. It's like he ran fast and he looked smooth catching the ball as well. I thought Hairston in the drills looked good catching the ball as well. I think that's always a big thing. It's like because you're a DB, okay, you're not a receiver, though Porter was a wide receiver before switching to defensive back. It's like you want to see these cornerbacks catching with their hands and doing a good job there. And I thought both of those guys did well. Derek Harmon, I thought he looked like one of the best defensive tackles. Ran a good 40 time there. Defensive tackle out of Oregon. Kind of talked about him a little bit. Jalen Noel, actually, I wanted to bring him up. The guy opposite of Jaden Higgins, and I thought he put a good 40 time in, and him and Higgins both did a good job at Iowa State. And I know he had a good Senior Bowl too, so he's been moving up board. So this was, I mean, it was a fun combine. I would say that there was nobody who really fell too far, in my opinion. I would say just kind of looking at the tape, looking at boards, pretty much everyone stayed where they were supposed to. A little bit of moving up, little bit of moving down, but I think just with the way that there's so much tape out there now, it's like everybody's watching stuff. It's like I think stuff's pretty much been solidified. The only time something might change is if there's injuries. But yeah, no, I also think just talking about other guys, Calvin Banks, I think he'd be a good guy still to look at. I think he performed well. So just kind of a, that's a Packer guy. So want to look for him.
Exciting
So
combine, like you said, and hopefully a guy like Isaiah Bond learned his lesson from opening his mouth that he's gonna take down Xavier Worthy's 40-yard dash record, and then he ends up
yeah,
just not coming close. Actually, his teammate Golden ran faster than him, so
yeah,
hopefully he little lesson learned there to keep your mouth shut and maybe
yeah,
perform first before you start talking.
yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, let your legs do the talking there. But no, there's definitely some good guys in the running back. Jaden Blue out of Texas, I think he'd be a good guy. We talked in the free agent episode just a little bit about running backs and talking about getting a guy later. I think they all ran pretty well, and I think Jacobs, I think he ran like a 4.5 40. So I think maybe just getting a change of pace back, just get somebody who can really run, just kind of be able to hit a hole quickly. I thought it was just interesting. I think Emmanuel Wilson I thought was okay, Brooks was okay, but I just never really saw the burst from them. So I know a lot of people liked them, but I was not particularly happy with the backup running backs. But obviously with Lloyd hopefully coming back, that was a guy who ran faster, and I think they're banking on that, which always scares me because I think when you evaluate guys and you build through the draft, you have a tendency to believe in your guys, which I get. I truly do, but sometimes it can blind you to what you truly need to do. I think they did that with Josiah DeGuara. It's like because he ended up not doing as good in my opinion. Should have cut him a little bit sooner, but he did good on special teams. I still say the reason he got drafted was because he was on Matt LaFleur's teach tape because he ran a ball down after it got fumbled and he went and ran it down and Matt LaFleur's like, this is how you play. So it's like I said, when you can be a coach's favorite, that helps you stay on the team.
Well, that's what makes draft season exciting, right? I mean, really, if you think about it, we can talk all day about combine numbers and draft boards. It's a lottery ticket, man. That's what makes it fun.
Yep.
There's no guarantees. Just because you have pick 23, man, who knows? We could land a Hall of Famer. You never know. There's a chance.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely.
and that's what makes this fun. That's what kind of, how the NFL has just mastered the offseason. And, we're going to talk plenty of drafts and shows to come. And like we talked about episode 1, Robbie and I are going to be there. Maybe we do a special live stream from the draft. We do something kind of fun with the channel. If you're going to be at the draft, let us know. Put it in the chat. We'd love to connect, meet up with some of the subscribers. And or if you have any other players that we did not talk about that you think had their stock rise or fall, or guys that we didn't talk about the Packers should target, definitely drop those names in the comments. And if you want us to break down film of any of these guys, I think all options are open.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love to break down some film on these guys. I think we're also going to be looking to do some mock drafts. I think that'd be fun. We'll probably just do one me and Justin to start, but I mean, we'd love to do like a live show, just kind of look at the comments, see who people want us to draft and go through that. I think it'd just be fun. Love getting other people's opinions. If you got your opinions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. We love reading those, seeing your guys' thoughts.
Alrighty, I think that's a good way to close the show. Please drop a like, subscribe. Thank you for all the support in the channel, and we'll talk to you guys all very soon.
Have a good one.